Xylar despised dead sectors. Even the name irritated him, a sloppy euphemism for zones bleeding a toxic cocktail of radiation and spacetime anomalies. Their existence was an insult to the Order, the network of star lanes his people, the Teslar, had spent millennia diligently carving across the galaxy. Dead sectors were stains, anomalies that resisted being mapped, tamed, used. And of course, his current, thrice-cursed mission had him crawling right through the gut of one. Hyperspace sensors rendered useless, shields straining at half power, Xylar's scout vessel felt like a fragile eggshell in a cosmic hurricane. "Just a few more parsecs, great navigator," chirped his AI co-pilot in a maddeningly cheerful tone he'd never been able to fully override. "Survey beacon within range." Xylar hissed, a ripple of scales rasping across his crest. Beacon retrieval was a task for drones, not a seasoned explorer like himself. Yet it was the only lead in determining why a routine patrol ship had vanished into this sector. He nudged the controls, and the viewscreen flickered, fighting to pierce the distortion. A flash of metal the beacon. Then, behind it, another vessel, deliberately blocking the beacon. Xylar squinted at the fuzzy blob, an impossible silhouette against swirling energies. Unknown craft. He thumbed the comm, link, voice tense. "Report, unidentified contact in the dead sector. Request immediate bot." The ship moved. Not an engine-powered shift, but a slip through the chaos like a fish in turbulent water where his own vessel fought every inch. Sleek, organic shape, no recognizable drives. "It's coming closer," the AI chirped, concern finally leaking into its synthetic tones. Xylar swore under his breath. Aliens were unthinkable in this wasteland, unless his stomach tightened. Bootleggers? Or worse, those crazed exiles who rejected the Order, worshipping radiation storms like suicidal zealots. "Hail them," he ordered, then added a string of Teslar curses better suited to an interrogation chamber than official comms. The alien vessel, now uncomfortably close, resolved into clearer focus. No weapons, at least none that Xylar could detect. The hull thrummed with an odd, muted energy that set his teeth on edge. His hail was met not with a standard encoded reply, but a discordant blast of music, sound at least, but twisted into a shrill cacophony designed to grate on Teslar auditory senses. "They seem displeased by our musical offerings," his AI remarked, stating the painfully obvious. If this was a first contact, these aliens had the subtlety of a meteor impact. Xylar gritted his teeth and switched channels. "State your species and intent," he projected, employing the meticulously neutral tones of the galactic trade tongue. Static, then a garbled mess of syllables. Not a known language. Was this some kind of primitive ploy, or an indication of just how warped these beings were by the sector's influence? Before he could analyze further, the alien vessel pulsed with a wash of harsh light that blinded his sensors. "Brace," he shouted to his useless AI, throwing up a protective arm across his multifaceted eyes. When his vision cleared, the alien ship pulsed again. This time, something materialized in the space between their vessels. Xylar froze. It was an organism, 4 limbs, upright posture, a bulbous head atop a thin neck. No protective suit, no breathing apparatus, nothing that should allow survival out here. Its skin was an unsettling, sickly blue. "Biological entity detected," chirped the AI. "Atmospheric analysis confirms. Breathable? Impossible. Teslar bioscanners could sniff out a toxin halfway across a solar system. If that thing was breathing, its physiology bordered on the supernatural." Fury surged within him, tempered by a cold curiosity that overrode his usual disgust for anything outside the Order. He gestured sharply, activating the retrieval beam. The alien twitched, then floated helplessly towards his airlock. He'd interrogate this anomaly, break its defiance, and discover what secrets held it alive in the heart of death. The creature, once secure in the decontamination chamber, looked almost quaint. Diminutive, its movements hesitant, wide eyes shimmering under harsh containment lights. Yet an unsettling wrongness radiated from it, a disharmony with its surroundings that Xylar found far more dangerous than any visible weapon. His interrogations were met with a baffling mixture of incomprehension, and a strange, bubbly excitement. The creature, which he internally categorized as specimen XO, fixated not on him, but on the instruments humming around them. Its gaze darted around, drawn to the flickering data readouts more than its captor. When he gestured for it to speak, it responded with a flurry of high, warbling noises, as though imitating the wail of faulty equipment. Xylar suppressed the urge to rattle his tail in frustration. He initiated a full biometric scan, his only hope for translating the creature's bizarre physiology. Hours cycled past. The results were unlike anything in his extensive database. The creature, bipedal with opposable thumbs, was typical of emerging space-faring races. Its internal organs, however, were a chaotic mess, tissue density fluctuating wildly, resilient to radiation in ways that defied conventional biology, and its neural structure. "Impossible," Xylar murmured. Its sensory processing centers were large, complex, almost overloading with input. A horrible thought struck him. Perhaps this wasn't a purposeful survivor of the dead sector, but a malformed specimen tragically adapted to it. That explained its obliviousness to danger. His revulsion grew, laced with a sliver of reluctant pity. Then Specimen Zero tilted its head, staring pointedly at the containment wall where the sector's energies bled through. A broad, toothy grin stretched across its sickly blue face. It began to hum, a wavering tone that somehow found harmony with the faint, chaotic symphony of the radiation storm outside. Xylar recoiled. This was no aberration. The thing was singing along. News of the anomaly he'd captured spread through the Teslar network with the speed of an ion storm. Xylar's superiors, usually distant specters relegated to curt directives, buzzed with interest bordering on panic. His scout ship, meant to be a mere footnote to a missing patrol, suddenly became the most important vessel in the sector. He fielded long-distance calls from grim-faced Teslar scientists, demanding a full data download of Specimen Zero, each one offering a conflicting theory. Was it a genetic experiment run amok? A bioweapon unleashed by an unknown rival? Was the radiation not harmful to this species, but beneficial? Then came the order that truly shook him. Transfer Specimen Zero to High Command for immediate study. Suddenly, Xylar wasn't a lone explorer, but a courier for something of galaxy-shaking importance. His scales rippled with unease, the thrill of discovery poisoned by rising dread. One figure, almost lost in the swarm of demands, gave him pause. A name blinked on his console, a designation rather than a face, HFY Patel. Xenobiologist, fringe affiliation, a reputation for near-heretical theories on convergent evolution. Her message was short. Requesting temporary transfer to your vessel. My expertise may prove. The transmission cut off mid-sentence. The AI helpfully provided her research history. Countless papers proposing that dead sectors were not empty, but teeming with life forms invisible to traditional Teslar perception. Life forms potentially intelligent. She'd been dismissed as a crackpot, her work buried under official disavowals. Yet here she was, elbowing her way into his mission. Xylar ran a clawed hand over his faceplates. His orderly world was falling apart. First, an alien thriving where it shouldn't. Now, a half-mad scientist confirming his worst suspicions. He was no longer hunting a patrol ship. He'd stumbled onto something that might tear the order of his people in two. "Fine," he hissed at the console. "Prepare a lab module, and inform Dr. Patel," he added caustically, "that the creature she's so eager to cuddle sings duets with the cosmic void." Dr. Patel materialized on his ship with the force of a miniature supernova. The containment lab he'd grudgingly cleared became a whirlwind of blinking datapads, humming projectors, and contraptions Xylar strongly suspected were held together by optimism and duct tape. Patel herself was a disorienting sight. Short, with chaotic hair, she moved in bursts of frantic energy, muttering strings of half-formed equations that buzzed through the translator like a swarm of angry insects. He observed her with the detached disdain of a soldier encountering a particularly messy battlefield. When she finally turned toward Specimen Zero, the shift was startling. Her movements gentled, eyes narrowing with focus. The creature, previously listless, responded with avid chirps, reaching out towards her with surprising agility. "Don't touch the containment field," Xylar barked, one step away from physically dragging her back. She barely glanced at him. "It's okay," she murmured, as much to the creature as to him. "Just a little static, nothing harmful." She pulled a device like a misshapen flute from her lab coat. "I call this a sonic harmonizer," she explained, waving it vaguely. "Might help us bridge the communication gap." She raised the harmonizer, mimicked one of Specimen Zero's warbles, then added a trilling melody of her own. The creature tilted its head, let out a burbling sound in response. Xylar's AI helpfully marked the exchange as inconclusive. "See?" Patel smiled triumphantly at him, not at all cowed by his scowl. "It's responding, finding patterns in the sound. Give me enough iterations, I'll build a translation matrix. You have no idea what you found here, Captain." "Scout Commander Xylar," he hissed in correction. "Commander," she conceded with a careless wave, already absorbed back in her work. This changes everything." Xylar left her to it, the lab a buzzing dissonance in the otherwise sterile order of his ship. Change. The one constant the Teslar had spent centuries trying to control, predict, and ultimately conquer. And here it was, blue-skinned, grinning, and humming along to the whispers of the abyss. Xylar jolted from his uneasy rest cycle. Patel stood in his command center doorway, eyes bloodshot, but alight with a manic intensity. "Turns out, all those warbles aren't random," she continued, thrusting a datapad at him. "They're structured, complex, it's language." The translation matrix, a mess of glyphs and phonetic approximations, swam before his eyes. "Are you certain?" Xylar hissed. "To ascribe language intention to this." This anomaly was a leap his Teslar mind struggled to take. "Well, as certain as one can be when your only dictionary is a chorus of dissonant chirps and a lot of caffeine." She shrugged. "But there's proper syntax, recurring phrases, rudimentary, yet undeniably there." He forced himself to focus. Among the jumble, a sequence repeated. It resolved into a single word, oddly lyrical, even in its rough translation: echo. Patel touched the datapad. "That's what it calls itself. Or rather, its species, the echoes." She looked past him, towards the shimmering distortion of the dead sector. Xylar felt a ripple of instinctive unease. Since its capture, Specimen Zero an echo had done little but stare out into the cosmic storm. Not with fear, but an unnerving fascination. "What else can you understand of this? Language?" "Bits and pieces. They see. Differently." She gestured helplessly. "It's like trying to explain color to someone born blind." Xylar's AI offered a practical interruption. "Dr. Patel, you have been in the lab for 36 standard hours. Regulation mandates." "Oh, shove your regulations," she waved the AI into silence, then fixed Xylar with a determined stare. "I need direct access. No containment fields, no sterilized scans. I need to experience what the echo experiences." He stared back. This woman was certifiable. Yet High Command's orders buzzed in his comm unit. They wanted answers. And this outlandish human, for all her chaotic methods, might have a way to get them. The repurposed cargo hold was dim, the usual harsh ship lights toned down to a soft glow. Xylar had insisted on restraints for Patel, not out of malice, but from the cold logic of self-preservation. If this went as wrong as he suspected, he didn't want to subdue a panicking human amidst an energy flux. The echo, unbound, paced on its spindly legs with surprising grace, warbling softly under its breath. Patel watched it, a strange reflection of its movements, swaying with each step the creature took. "Ready?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "This is against every protocol, human," he warned, but the disapproval in his tone was thin. Rules seemed laughably insufficient right now. Patel nodded, eyes fixed on the echo. He signaled to his crew, watching through the observation window as they cut power to the field projectors. The protective hum died. The thick silence that descended was more oppressive than any barrier. The echo tilted its head, staring intently at Patel as the faint energy signature swirling around her coalesced, becoming brighter, mirroring the chaos outside. A tendril of distortion slithered forward, brushing against her skin. she gasped, a small, sharp sound in the thick quiet. Xylar tensed. This was it. Proof of her madness, or a breakthrough beyond his comprehension. Then Patel began to sing. Not the harmonizer's melody, but a raw, wordless keen. It resonated against the hum of the dead sector, not harmonizing, but riding the dissonant wave, finding a counterpoint in the chaos. The echo responded, its vocalization shifting, mirroring the patterns in hers, creating a chilling, mournful duet. A surge of energy rippled through the hold, the viewscreen flickered, showing the echo's bizarre patterns overlaid against the external dead sector. For a dizzying moment, the chaos looked less like an anomaly and more like writing. Crude, perhaps, but lines, shapes intentionally formed in the flux. Sweet mother of science, Patel breathed, still singing in a trance-like state. Xylar stood frozen. Were they communicating with the radiation storms? Patel's song broke, a jagged note of panic cutting through the fragile harmony. She stumbled backward, eyes wide. Patel! Xylar moved forward, torn between caution and the fear that had lodged itself in his gut. Had they hit some invisible threshold, breached a limit of interaction that even the echoes couldn't survive? The echo, however, looked unharmed and almost concerned. It moved with a newfound purpose, placing a thin-fingered hand against the observation window. The energy swirled and formed, drawing itself into crude shapes that mimicked Patel's scribbled notes on her datapad. Translation. It was attempting to bridge the gap a second time. They're intelligent, Patel rasped, her voice ragged but alight with a manic triumph. Not just adapted to the dead sectors, they understand them, can manipulate them. Xylar felt his world tilting on its axis. The Teslar Order was built on taming the stars, mapping routes, and suppressing anomalies. Here, before his eyes, was the ultimate defiance of that order, a creature not merely surviving chaos, but thriving within it. An alarm blared, the ship's AI no longer content to be a silent observer. Substantial energy build up, risk of containment breach, recommend immediate resealing of the hold. No, Patel lunged forward, placing her own hand against the glass, palm to the echoes. Give them a chance. The energy crackled between them, bright enough to sear his eyes. Was this communication, or the prelude to an attack? Were these beings his worst nightmare, or the key to a power the Teslar could never have dreamed of? Xylar, Patel cried out, her voice a mix of wonder and terror. I think I understand. They're trying to show us something. Despite the eye's insistent warnings, despite the primal fear twisting in his gut, the explorer in Xylar outweighed the soldier. Show us what? He whispered, his own curiosity a traitorous echo of hers. The surge of energy wasn't an attack, but a pulse of information. Xylar's multifaceted eyes strained, seeing not just the flickering light, but patterns resolving within it. His ship's sensors, designed for the cold precision of physics, were suddenly flooded with something else. Intent, emotion, memories bleeding out of the very fabric of the dead sector. He saw, experienced a fragment of an alien consciousness, a vast ancient civilization reaching towards the stars, their ambition blazing brighter than any sun. And then, a rupture, a weapon, not of fire and metal, but of reality itself, tearing the cosmos apart. In the aftermath, entire star systems reduced to swirling echoes, pockets of distorted energy that were the scars of the universe itself. His crest spines prickled in a primal wave of fear. This wasn't a discovery, it was a warning. Imminent breach, the AI announced, its tone no longer concerned, but resigned. Recommend evacuation. He glanced at Patel, crumpled on the floor, eyes filled with a terrible understanding. The echo still pressed its hand to the glass, not in aggression, but in a desperate attempt to convey what they had felt. The danger wasn't in the room, it was the dead sector itself. Xylar's world collapsed. The order, the certainty of control, was an illusion. The galaxy wasn't just filled with stars, but with the ghosts of civilizations that dared to reach too far. And now they stood at the epicenter of a disaster waiting to repeat itself. Get Patel to an escape pod, he ordered, the words raw in his throat. Every instinct screamed at him to follow, yet his clawed hands moved of their own accord, not towards the escape hatch, but to the command console. Xylar, The ship AI, for the first time, carried a note of uncertainty. "Sending priority transmission high command," he said, each word heavy as stone. "Subject, dead sectors. Immediate reclassification as Omega level threat. Requesting full quarantine protocol. Evacuate all Tesla personnel. Issue sector-wide warning." He ignored the rising chaos, the blaring alarms signaling the imminent collapse of containment. It didn't matter. His world had already ended. He was a witness, and his duty was to make sure the rest of the Tesla did not follow this path blindly. The escape pod jettisoned, a flicker of light against the swirling storm of radiation as Xylar's ship imploded in a silent flash. Patel, unconscious but alive, would carry his report, his warning, back to the Order. He, however, stayed behind. There was no logic in it, just a cold certainty settling within him. The dead sector was his responsibility now. He couldn't quarantine it, but he could watch, listen, and learn whatever he could from the echoes. Perhaps, in his small, solitary way, he could prevent such destruction from ever happening again. His scout vessel, now reduced to skeletal wreckage, drifted through the swirling energies. He had minimal supplies, communication only with the AI program still running on the ship's failing system. His fate was sealed, a kind of living death sentence. Yet, when the Echo drifted out of the wreckage, a fragile figure against the chaos, he felt an odd kinship with his former captive. "I don't speak your language," he rasped through his suit's external communicator, the words barely audible over the crackling distortion. "And I don't think any translation device could bridge this gap." The Echo tilted its head, warbling curiosity in the broken sound reaching him. And he, a Teslar who spent a lifetime valuing order predictability, felt a flare of defiance. He reached out, peeling off the bulky glove of his environmental suit. Bare flesh wouldn't survive long, but the gesture was all that mattered. Skin met the energy hum, not the searing burn he anticipated, but a strange, vibrating coolness. It rippled over him, resonating deep in his bones. The Echo responded. The energy swirled around him, shifting, drawing together in a mirror of Patel's crude sketches and his own fragmented memories of the shared vision. Shapes, patterns, the beginnings of an impossible communication. It was slow, fumbling, and likely to fail. His hand throbbed as his body protested contact with raw energy his suit was built to shield him from. Yet he persisted, gritting his teeth against the growing pain. He was a dying explorer in a dead star system, trying to speak with the echoes of a vanished civilization. And perhaps, just perhaps, those echoes might whisper back, guiding him and others away from the path of annihilation. The AI announced his remaining lifespan dwindling rapidly. It was a clinical statement of fact, no hint of worry for its commander's impending demise. He smiled, a grim slash against his scaly skin. The Teslar Order would see him as a failure, a madman who threw his life away for nothing. But in this chaotic heart of destruction, amidst the song of the echoes, he'd found something the Order desperately needed. Hope. Even amongst the ruins, a sliver of defiant, irrational, beautiful hope. Patel woke to the relentless beeping of medical monitors and the sterile smell of a Teslar infirmary. Fragments of memory pierced the haze. The echo, the surge of energy, Xylar's grim face as he sent her into the escape pod. She bolted upright, ignoring the protests of the hovering medic bot. "Xylar," she rasped. "Where is he? What happened to the sector?" The medics, after a flurry of scans and irritated clicking sounds, finally brought in a senior officer. Not the grim-faced scientists, but a Teslar whose crest markings were those of high command. His expression mirrored the coldness of the ship's corridors. "Commander Xylar," the officer stated, tone clipped, "is classified as Mia. His sacrifice ensured the successful evacuation of the vessel and will be honorably recorded." "That's not," Patel started, then forced herself to calm down. This was Teslar protocol, valuing the whole over the individual. But that's not what Xylar would have wanted. "The dead sector?" she pushed. "What about the discovery?" The officer's response was measured, controlled. "The Science Division's report is classified. However, I assure you, the sector's been reclassified. Standard quarantine measures are now in effect. You will be awarded for your contribution, and offered a research station for continued study of the specimen. He said it like it was a generous gift. A cage, Patel thought bitterly, a gilded one, but a cage nonetheless. Her hand tightened into a fist. Xylar was gone, their discovery locked away, and the Order would continue on its path, willfully blind. "No," she said, her voice quiet but firm. The officer blinked, the first sign of surprise cracking his stoic facade. "I won't accept a lab assignment. I'm filing for immediate field recertification." "Dr. Patel, considering your ordeal, a period of rest." "I want to go back," she cut him off. "I need to finish what Xylar and I started." The room seemed to tilt around her. Going back to the dead sectors was tantamount to suicide, a violation of every Teslar safety protocol. But Xylar's face, resolute as he sent her into the escape pod, swam in her vision. The argument escalated, bouncing up the chain of command with dizzying speed. Patel didn't waver. Rest, they argued. Therapy, they suggested. Subtly, and not so subtly, they questioned her sanity. She parried every insinuation with a volley of data, citing her impeccable work history, highlighting the irrefutable evidence of intelligent life within the dead sectors. Finally, in a move that felt more like bureaucratic exhaustion than agreement, they granted her request. But with caveats: a heavily modified scout vessel, an AI programmed for extreme caution, and a tracking beacon that would summon a retrieval squad at the first hint of trouble. She'd be collared, monitored, and one step away from being dragged back forcibly. It was humiliating, but it was also a chance. The ship they assigned her was old, barely spaceworthy. Her human ingenuity, much to the dismay of the Teslar technicians, turned its limitations into advantages. She stripped out non-essential systems, rerouted power to the sensors, and turned the cramped cargo bay into a makeshift lab, humming with her jury-rigged equipment. When she finally launched, it was less a triumphant voyage than a desperate escape. The dead sector shimmered before her, not with menace, but with a mournful familiarity. This was Xylar's domain now, a place where the rules of the Order had bent and broken. A place she, the outcast, might just belong. "AI," she addressed the overly watchful program. "Override the recall beacon. Don't want those retrieval teams barging in unexpectedly." "Dr. Patel," the AI protested, using the stiffest formalities. "This is a severe breach of protocol. I must report." She tapped into the ship's system, rerouting the AI's directives with a speed that left it sputtering digital expletives. When the AI finally came back online, its programmed alarm had given way to a begrudging admiration. "I'll let it slide," the AI sniffed, "for now. But if you get yourself vaporized—" "My problem," she muttered, guiding the ship deeper into the energy storm. She smiled, the first genuine one in weeks. It felt good to break the rules. Xylar would approve. The echoes found her within a solar cycle. It wasn't a physical sighting, but a shift in the sector's energy patterns, a ripple that her cobbled-together sensors picked up. Had Xylar managed to teach them enough rudimentary communication? Or was this their instinctual curiosity drawn to the anomaly of a lone ship venturing back into their domain? She powered up her harmonizer, broadcasting a series of simple tones into the swirling chaos, the sonic equivalent of a hesitant greeting. The response was a wave of distortion, jarring, but carrying a strange echo of her own melody. They remembered. Progress was achingly slow. Xylar's notes were cryptic, his translations more guesswork than linguistic breakthrough. She spent frustrating hours deciphering fragmented glyphs, trying to find patterns in the echo's seemingly random warbles. Yet, with each exchange, however fumbling, a strange understanding began to form. The echoes were not conquerors, but survivors. Eons ago, their ancestors had triggered the cosmic calamity that created the dead sectors. It was a history of guilt and desperation, etched into the fabric of the cosmos itself. They lingered here not out of ownership, but out of duty. They learned to navigate the distorted energies, not for power, but to contain the catastrophic echoes of their past. One evening, as frustration threatened to overwhelm her, she threw the datapad aside and activated the harmonizer. Instead of the usual structured tones, she let loose a mournful hum, echoing the desolate beauty of the energy vortex outside, a venting of her own exhaustion tinged with a helpless admiration for these beings. The sector pulsed back, not with data or glyphs, but a mournful melody that wound itself around hers, a duet of shared solitude. She hummed along, tears catching in her throat. This was their language, the song of a fractured universe, and she was beginning to understand. The AI, silent for a blessed hour, finally chimed in. "Retrieval team incoming," it reported, a mechanical note of worry in its synthesized voice. "There's no way to outrun them." Patel smiled wearily. She'd broken every rule. It was time to face the consequences. "Signal them," she instructed. "Tell them Dr. Patel has a discovery that warrants a change in the Teslar quarantine protocol." If they dragged her back in chains, she'd go down fighting. The retrieval team wasn't a squad of faceless enforcers, but a high-level delegation. Teslar scientists with anxious expressions and high-ranking officials whose disapproval radiated even through the choppy comm channel. Dr. Patel, the lead scientist, a name she vaguely recalled from heated debates weeks ago, addressed her with taut civility. "Your actions are unprecedented, your breach of protocol inexcusable." Yet, his voice faltered, mirroring the reluctance in the other's eyes. "Your reports, they defy everything we believed." She keyed the external sensors, transmitting a live feed of the dead sector. Superimposed on it was a crude, flickering translation filter. She'd been refining glyphs and waveforms resolving out of the swirling energies. It was unstable, full of gaps, but it was undeniably a language. "Their intent is not malign," she explained, the weariness in her voice overshadowed by a fierce determination. "They're sentinels. They understand the dead sectors are remnants of a weapon, unstable echoes. And they have the knowledge too." She hesitated, searching for the right words. Not control it, but stabilize it, perhaps even over time, neutralize the threat completely. The Teslar delegation was silent, their rigid stances slowly giving way to thoughtful consideration. Xylar's initial warning had upended their world, but it was a theoretical threat. Here Patel presented them with a potential solution, however outlandish or dangerous it seemed. "Can you prove this?" demanded one of the officials, a Teslar whose crest markings placed him near the top of the Order's hierarchy. Patel gestured to the comm screen. "Not definitively, but communication is happening. We're on the verge of a breakthrough. If I had more time, uninterrupted." "More time is a luxury we might not have," the official countered. "There are factions within the Order advocating for a preemptive strike on the dead sectors, a full eradication protocol. Your radical discoveries have dangerously destabilized the situation." She sucked in a sharp breath, a cold wave of anger overriding her fatigue. "So what? We ignore the problem and hope it goes away, bomb our way into oblivion." The argument threatened to derail into a repetition of old battles. Yet a flicker on the comm screen caught her eye. The energy patterns were shifting, the echoes reacting not in fear, but in purposeful movement. "Wait!" she shouted, cutting over the increasingly tense voices of the Teslar delegation. "Look!" She magnified the image. The echoes weren't merely swirling around their ship, but moving towards a specific point within the sector. Their movements coalesced into shifting glyphs, a message, or a marker. "They're showing us something," she said, her mind racing. "The most unstable area? Or maybe this is where the original event took place, the source of the distortion." The Teslar buzzed amongst themselves, scientists overriding caution with a surge of intense curiosity. Finally, the lead scientist spoke, an undercurrent of tension in his voice. "Dr. Patel, could you, with utmost caution, approach the indicated coordinates? But be warned." "I know," she cut him off. "First hint of danger, I turn and run. Survival is still my top priority." It was a half-truth. Protecting the echoes, protecting the chance for the Teslar to truly understand, that was her driving force now. The approach was agonizingly slow. Her patched-together ship creaked in protest as it pushed deeper into the energy soup, the glyph translations flickering dangerously. Yet the echoes pulsed reassuringly around her, their presence forming an oddly protective bubble against the worst of the distortion. Then she saw it. Not with her eyes, but on every sensor she'd jury-rigged. A nexus point, a swirling vortex far denser than the surrounding dead sector. The source of the instability, the wound in reality which had scarred the galaxy. She broadcast the readings back to the waiting Teslar. Their exclamations were a cacophony of shock and disbelief. It's far worse than we imagined, stammered the lead scientist. No wonder containment failed. This isn't just an echo, it's an active breach. The high-ranking official, previously a vocal advocate of annihilation, now wrestled with an even more dangerous realization. If this unravels any further, he started, the chilling implications hanging unspoken. Patel, heart-pounding, dared to voice the unthinkable. The echoes, they understand this. They've been holding it together. If we give them the tools, the resources, perhaps they could. Seal the breach? The lead scientist finished her thought, a flicker of awe in his multifaceted eyes. It's madness, but then again, so is everything about this situation. The plan was audacious, desperate, and the kind of thing that made Teslar bureaucrats break out in nervous hives. They wouldn't risk a major vessel this close to the Nexus, but sent down a drone laden with equipment Patel specified. Energy containment units, adaptive shielding, mostly tech in early development, never field-tested in such catastrophic conditions. The Echoes accepted the drone, their movements precise and unhurried, even with the breach swirling ominously near. With excruciating slowness they began. It wasn't engineering as the Teslar understood it, but a strange dance of intent around the flickering reality wound. At times the breach flared dangerously, sending Patel scrambling to adjust output on the containment units remotely. Twice, the lead scientist demanded they abandon the attempt, the risk outweighing the potential gain. Twice, the high-ranking official, with surprising resolve, overruled him. Patel, watching the Echoes struggle valiantly in the face of forces that could obliterate them in an instant, knew surrender wasn't an option. This was a fight for survival, not just hers, but for all life caught in the shadow of an ancient cataclysm. The turning point wasn't a sudden victory, but a shift so subtle she almost missed it. The breach pulsed, a malevolent heartbeat. Then, instead of expanding it, faltered. The erratic rhythm steadied, its edges blurring slightly. Patel keyed her calm, voice trembling. It's stabilizing, not much, but the deterioration has halted. The Teslar delegation erupted in a mix of elation and horrified disbelief. They'd spent centuries fearing and avoiding the dead sectors, and here a renegade human scientist and a handful of beings everyone previously dismissed as aberrations were rewriting their entire doctrine. But there was no time for celebration. The breach was contained, but fragile. "We need to reinforce," she said urgently. "This won't hold on its own. But if we can replicate the tech, build a proper containment field around the Nexus." Dr. Patel, the official interrupted, sounding strangely humbled. "You have your resources, whatever you require." The words sent a thrill through her. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about ushering the Order into a new era, one built on cooperation rather than blind control. The outpost they built was a testament to the Teslar's fear and Ashaz's unyielding ambition. It orbited the Nexus Point, a shimmering latticework of containment tech and sensor arrays, drawing power directly from the unstable energies of the breach. Patel's quarters, once a cramped cargo hold, now resembled a mad scientist's workshop, humming with her patchwork tech and the swirling projections of echo glyphs. The Teslar adapted with surprising, if cautious, speed. Teams of their best scientists rotated in, studying echo techniques, their rigid methodology bending under the weight of undeniable results. Xylar would have been both appalled and perversely delighted, Patel mused, at the sheer chaos she'd unleashed within his meticulously ordered world. The Echoes became integral to the project. Their understanding of the breach was instinctive, where the Teslar relied on hard data, allowing them to anticipate fluctuations and adjust the containment field with uncanny precision. Communication remained broken, but a trust formed between them, a shared language of gesture and intent woven against the backdrop of cosmic dissonance. "Look!" Her current research partner, a Teslar who'd gone from skepticism to wide-eyed fascination in record time, pointed excitedly at a screen. "The energy signature, it's not just stabilizing, but compressing." Patel ran the calculations twice in disbelief. The breach was shrinking. Not quickly, but with a relentless certainty that made her heart soar. It was proof. Proof that the dead sectors weren't unconquerable wastelands, but the scars of an old war, wounds that, given time and unimaginable collaboration, could actually begin to heal. News of their success, initially in hushed tones, then with full-throated triumph, reached the heart of the Teslar Order. Those pushing for annihilation protocols grudgingly fell silent. An expeditionary fleet wasn't just discussed, but put into development. Teslar vessels modified not with weapons, but tools to replicate the outpost's success on other dead sectors across the galaxy. Patel stood on the outpost's observation deck, and Echo beside her, both of them gazing out into the swirling storm they fought to mend. "Do you think," she started, then hesitated. Could this fragile, improbable partnership last? The Echo tilted its head, let out a questioning warble. "Do you think one day we'll understand the ones who came before you, the ones who caused this?" The Echo's response was a ripple of energy against her skin, a strange mix of sadness and resolve echoing her own emotions. Years turned into an unexpected decade. The outpost expanded, became a beacon amidst the swirling chaos. Asha, the anomaly the Teslar once sought to contain, became their greatest expert, her unorthodox methods now studied, replicated, and begrudgingly respected. But it was never easy. Setbacks erupted like miniature supernovas within the shrinking breach, forcing frantic evacuations. Factions within the Teslar Order whispered of old fears, urging a return to quarantine and control when the Echo methods proved slow and unpredictable. And always there was the question Asha and the Echoes themselves couldn't answer: would the breach ever truly be sealed? Or was theirs a never-ending vigil, a fragile balance struck against an ancient, uncaring force? She found an unexpected confidant in the Teslar High Command official. Once an advocate of drastic measures, he now carried a worn datapad filled with Asha's early, frantic translations. In quiet hours, they'd contemplate the crude glyphs, seeking not just the Echo's knowledge, but a deeper understanding of their motivations. "Regret," he murmured one evening, tracing a looping glyph with a clawed finger. "And determination. This isn't just a task for them, Dr. Patel. It's penance." She thought of the Echo's mournful songs and their relentless struggle, survivors driven not by ambition or anger, but by a haunting guilt stretching across millennia. "Penance," she repeated softly, "and a warning. Perhaps that's what they always meant to teach us." With each cycle, the Echoes changed. Not physically, but in the way they moved, interacted with the shrinking nexus. It was as if the raw energy was transmuting them, infusing them with knowledge they never sought. They became, without intending to, something new, something born out of a cosmic catastrophe. And so did the Teslar. Vessels once sleek and predatory were repurposed with strange, organic curves inspired by Echo movements, designed to channel the dead sector's energy rather than fight it. Crews included scientists, engineers, and the newly formed Harmonizer Corps specialists attempting to bridge the communication gap, not through translation, but through the empathetic resonance of sound and intent. One day, an Echo, young and vibrant compared to the others, pulsed against the observation window. It gestured not at the nexus, but towards the boundless stars beyond the dead sector. A question and a yearning that cut through any language barrier. Asha turned to the Teslar official, now an ally as much as a superior. A silent conversation passed between them, a strange twist of fate that the future of their people might be decided in this fragile outpost, born out of desperation and maverick science. "It's time," she said, her voice hoarse with a mix of wonder and trepidation. "Time for expansion and exploration." Leaving wasn't an abandonment, but a multiplication of their efforts. The outpost remained, its containment field holding the nexus in check, a team of Teslar and Echoes always vigilant. But the knowledge gained, the tentative trust built, couldn't be confined to a single scar in the galaxy. Asha stood at the helm of the first expeditionary vessel. It wasn't a warship, but a marvel of Teslar-Echo collaboration, its form strangely fluid, with sensors attuned to the faintest distortions in space. Beside her, an echo pulsed in time with the hum of the engines, their presence a testament to the unlikely alliance forged in the crucible of the dead sector. Their destination was pinpointed with scientific accuracy and a haunting intuition shared by the echoes. Another dead sector smaller, but pulsing with the same malevolent instability. This time there was no startled discovery, no panicked scramble. They came prepared, armed with knowledge, and a sliver of hope learned at a terrible price. The Teslar crew watched her, not with the rigid discipline of the past, but the quiet intensity of shared purpose. The harmonizer core held their instruments close, their role as vital as any engineer's. It was an expedition born of Ashaz's defiance, of Xylar's lonely sacrifice, and the Echo's timeless guilt. Dr. Patel, a calm officer, young and bright-eyed, announced nervously, "We're within range of the target sector. Initial scans match our projections." "Steady as she goes," Ashaz said. Her voice was calm, but a tremor ran through her. It was a fool's gamble still, pitting themselves against forces beyond understanding. Yet, as she glanced at the echo beside her, a flicker of answering trust shimmered in its energy, a silent vow of shared purpose. Entering the dead sector was less an invasion than a hesitant approach. The ship pulsed with tentative signals, half in the Teslar language of code, half in the harmonizer's fractured translation of the echo's intent. As they neared the nexus point, a flicker of something familiar echoed back. "They're there," a harmonizer gasped. "Not as many, and weaker. But it's them. It's the echoes." Survival. Relief surged through her, laced with a pang of sorrow. The echoes, drawn to wounds in the fabric of the universe, were spread perilously thin. Their existence was one of eternal sacrifice. The mission became a strange mirroring of their work at the first outpost, stabilizing, containing, and the excruciatingly slow work of understanding. It was a testament to the ripple effect Ashaz's reckless defiance had set in motion. Out in the vastness of the galaxy, other teams would be following their hard-won path, using science and empathy to turn despair into a cautious hope. Time lost its neat Teslar definition. Ashaz measured her life not in standard cycles, but in the number of dead sectors stabilized, the tentative growth of the echo population, and the slow but undeniable shift within the Teslar Order. Those who clung to the old dogma were not silenced, but marginalized, their voices growing weaker in the face of each successful expedition. The day came when she was too old for the rigors of outpost life. Her body, already an uneasy compromise between human fragility and modifications inspired by ecophysiology, protested against the endless fight against entropy. But her return to the heart of the Order wasn't a triumphant parade, but a quiet acknowledgement of limits. They built her a research center, modest compared to the sprawling outposts, yet filled with a warmth and acceptance she'd once never believed possible from the rigid Teslar. Students, those who were once skeptical of her xenophilic views, flocked to her side, eager to learn the techniques born in the heart of the chaos. But her true legacy wasn't a building or a set of theories. It was in the children who ran through those halls. Teslar, yes, but with softer features, eyes holding an openness their ancestors lacked, and those born of the harmonizer core hybrids with a unique sensitivity to the unseen patterns of the cosmos. Their laughter a sweet counterpoint to the mournful hum of contained dead sectors. One evening, as the twin suns of the Teslar homeworld dipped below the horizon, an echo pulsed against the glass of her study. It was one of the old ones, its movements slow, infused with a weariness that pierced through Ashaz's soul. "Regret is fading," she murmured, placing a frail hand against the shimmering barrier. "Not for them, perhaps, but for her own kind. My people are learning, and because of that, the burden on yours will lighten, even if just a little." The echo tilted its head, let out a burbling note that sent a wave of warmth through her aging bones. Gratitude, perhaps? Or maybe just a flicker of shared twilight peace between two species brought together by a cosmic scar. In the quiet of her study, Ashaz allowed herself a small, tired smile. Xylar, wherever he drifted amidst the stars, would likely disapprove of the messiness of it all. The half-measures, the compromises, the slow dance of progress and setbacks. But she, the reckless human who defied all protocols, understood something now that the Teslar mind never could. Order was an illusion. The beauty, the terrible wonder of the universe, lay in the chaos, in the struggle for harmony amidst forces beyond comprehension. It was in the echo's mournful song, the Teslar's quest for knowledge, and her own relentless, improbable hope.